Douglas Rushkoff, you know, the guy who wrote the books that you've just ordered.
Yes, I've got them. Yeah.
Oh, you got them. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, he's written another article around. Well, he's actually headed up the email that he's sent called "The Privileged Have Entered Their Escape Pods." So he talks about.
But I got that. Is it? But I'm getting emails from him.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, as long as you've got it, that's the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, because I did click on it and think, I must read that tonight.
Yeah. So I had a quick read of it there earlier today, and I think it's got some application in terms of some broader principles to what we're doing, I think. Because what it does in my mind is it reintroduces the whole idea of connectedness and being part of a broader community, and how technology can either enable or disenable, in this case, connection with people. Okay. So the essence of what he's written is he's basically saying that as a result of the lockdown and with where technology is at the moment, that the privileged in particular have basically have isolated themselves, and for all intents and purposes, potentially have isolated themselves permanently. So they're sort of further stepping away from the broader community and how they engage with the community, and using technology to give themselves a code and forget about the rest of them. Forget about the rest of us. You know, as long as they're okay, then life is good. So he goes into a fair bit of detail there about, you know, how they've cocooned themselves and are cocooning their future. Probably just because they can, I guess. And he talks about some of the implications of that and what that might mean as well, which I thought was really interesting, you know. So, okay. But where it struck a chord for me was in some of the work that we've been doing around, you know, the distribution model, now the digital distribution model. One of the aspects that we haven't really covered off in any amount of detail is some of that spiritual connection. And that really goes to the heart of, you know, care and compassion for others, you know, how you conduct yourself, you know, the values, the morals, and some of those aspects. And how there's really an intersection of, you know, when someone makes a decision, is they either want to engage with people, you know, for their benefit and their well-being, or they just want to isolate for their own benefit and their own well-being. And it seems to be very much like a T-junction where you either turn left or you turn right, you know. So, and he's sort of talking about here how his perception is that the privileged have basically, in many cases, made the decision just to, well, as he terms it, enter their escape pods. So just to isolate themselves from what's happening within the world. And he sort of discusses a little bit around, you know, well, how can they isolate themselves from things like climate change or pandemics, you know, natural disasters and all of those sort of things, you know. So,
Okay, interesting. Sounds very interesting. I'll read it tonight, yeah.
So it's really a sort of like a follow-up article to one that he's written before. I don't know whether you've seen it or not, when he talks about when he was invited to go and speak to a number of billionaires about the future.
That was quite a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah. I haven't read an article about it or a summary of that, but perhaps it'd be a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think there's a video that he's done on it where he goes into a fair amount of detail, like he's interviewed in this video, and he talks about why he was invited and what they asked him of him, the advice he gave to them and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Okay. Be very relevant. Yeah.
Mm. But in this article, he also talks about, like Amazon and their role in either enabling this isolation and that sort of thing as well. And the paradox in terms of, the huge workforce which is needed to deliver on those online purchases and so on, but how the beneficiaries of it are really the people who are just completely isolating themselves from the people who are actually delivering the service and enabling the service.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's some really interesting points there, I think, that he sort of touches on. His context is more about how technology is used, but I think that there's some broader elements there that we could sort of flesh out from it personally. So
yeah, he talks about that in his book now. Throwing stones at the Google bus, as well.
Yeah.
It's an amazingly interesting book, as you've, I think, found his article interesting. It's everything he writes or does is now. I think because we, that's what we're looking for, and he is a very clear, deep thinker on the subject, and so I think we're going to benefit immensely, and so will everybody else who reads his articles. Yeah.
And I think one of the key points which he seems to come up time and time again through his work is that people are presented with decisions which enable them to either go one direction or another direction, and it's whether people are making those decisions consciously and with the relevant background information, or whether they're just making it selfishly just for their own individual benefit, and whilst it might be for their benefit in the short term, I think the long-term implications are, I think they've just written themselves a death sentence, personally.
Right. I agree. I agree.
So I think there's a few elements in there that we might want to just think about as to whether we want to sort of spend a bit more time on it and flesh some of those elements out a bit more too, I think. So
yeah, what I'm going to do is, and I've started doing it, is take an aspect of the book and read it, and then write about that aspect. Okay, using the points he's making, and then anything else that comes up in my own mind, putting the two together and doing that all the way through, because I think there's so much that we mustn't lose in what he has got to say, and so by doing this, I think we'll restore it, certainly a subsequent article. Keep it in our consciousness. Can you believe it? On the website on 6G.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I couldn't believe it. It was this morning, actually. I've still got to get my head around this, and only the elite of the elite use 6G. Okay. But so anyway,
what's different about it? Is it just on a different frequency or something? Is it? Or
I can't tell you. I've just had a quick glance at it, and I'm looking forward to reading it, because I couldn't believe my eyes. And we haven't even got 5G going yet. In fact, I think 5G is up for auction, isn't it?
Well, that's what that article seemed to be about. Yeah,
that's right. So I just thought, can you imagine which of those elite would land up with 5G, and what would be the outcome of that? Okay, imagine one person owning that. But anyway, what was your impression when you read that article?
Oh, I just can't help ask myself the question. It's like, like why? Like why is there still this hell-bent approach by some just for their own gain. It's like there's just total disregard for the broader community. It's just like it's almost like the mindset with a number of these elites is well, we've just written them all off. They're just expendable. And it just sort of I just have personally I just have difficulty getting my head around how could you think that way? How could you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're okay, but you're not. You're okay, but you're not. All of you over there, no,
it's
you're
about
not.
spirituality, okay?
Yeah.
As you said, you come to a T-junction in the head. But also, what's happening now is between the elite of the elite, there's competition now, okay?
Yeah.
And there's some of them that hate each other.
Yeah.
We used to freely talk last year about the Illuminati and, their little hierarchy and so on. But there are people that have created, let's call it an opposition to that. Okay.
Yeah.
But they're just as evil as the other one.
Well, that's right. It's just a competition to see who can outdo the other, isn't it? Really?
So. And who can get more power and who can get more control of the earth.
Yeah. It's quite peculiar.
But it's going to be interesting to see it unfold, and I'm because in Logos we had a saying that Moya wrote somewhere along the line, and that was, there's a pendulum, okay, and the pendulum swings backward and forward, and it can only go so far in one direction, and then it swings back, you see, and that's what's happened right through time. And so we reach in the end of one of the swings of the pendulum.
And the elite at that level don't relinquish things lightly, do they? It's quite often it's a self-destructive. It's quite a self-destructive.
It has to be destroyed. Okay, it has to be destroyed. They will not relinquish anything, and so. We're busy reading and speculating about things like climate change and the consequences of climate change, because climate change is inevitable. Okay, there's no doubt about that. And then there are countries like the Netherlands who accept that there's going to be climate change. Now remember, they have put up all sorts of walls to keep the sea out, okay, and reclaimed land. They've now said that they're not going to do that anymore, okay, because they accept that they can't just stop the sea forever. So in their mind, they're going to say, they have said, right, the sea's going to come in, okay, let's change our architecture, let's change our lifestyle, and let's live with the water around us.
Live in harmony with it rather than fighting it.
Than fighting it. So I'm looking forward to also getting into the background to see what the architecture. The first thing they've done, they have taken like high car parks and things like that, and they can be turned into freshwater storage tanks. Okay, that's one example. So there are countries around the world that are making changes to look after, hopefully, all their citizens. Okay. Whereas the elite are looking to just look after themselves, either by going deep underground or going to outer space.
What a lonely existence.
It is, without a doubt. But there's, everybody is lonely who's not spiritual. Okay,
that's true.
I was talking to the Alatra group on Saturday, and they were talking about relationships and they totally agree that if you've got a higher consciousness, if you've got a spiritual consciousness, you wake up feeling in harmony, okay, as opposed to those who have taken the earthly role. They need people, they need things, they need constantly, and it doesn't really give them that same feeling.
It's very true. I participate on a forum there on that website called gratefulness.org. And one of the practices they have is they have a daily question, which they invite people to just send responses in. It's like a forum. And the question the other day was, like, and it's nothing new, but the question was basically, if you've only got 24 hours to live, what would you do? And 9 out of 10 responses was all about, I would go and buy a sports car, or I'd do this, or I'd, it's like, it's all just about here and now. It's not about what's coming in the transition. Like, it just astounds me, and I'd try and prolong the day as long as I could, and this, and thinking, why? So it just, it just fascinates me. But anyway. Come
on, let me ask you, what did you write?
I just said I think it would be such an exciting day, like if you knew that at the end of it that you were making the transition, and I said I'd have a big celebration. It'll be I'd call it the return to source day. Everyone's talking about death and dying. I'd say no, it's all about returning to the source. And I said, what I'd like to do is, I'd have, music, and I'd have my favorite scents, from these different timbers that I love the smell of, and I'd have candles and celebrating. And I said, and the moment that I make the transition, I'd love for there to be a huge thunderclap, as part of the announcement of the exit sort of thing, But everyone else is like, I'd sit there with the cat on my lap and I'd be worried. And it's like, oh, goodness, don't do that.
Yes. It absolutely is a time of rejoicing, isn't it?
It is. Definitely.
Yeah. This is where knowledge of the spiritual and knowledge of the world hereafter, should be part of everybody's knowledge.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it should be something that's openly and freely talked about and sharing people's experiences and that. But instead, it's all secret squirrel and, driven by fear and, it's very strange.
But it is an interesting question, because I think we've grown up at odd times asking that question, possibly even in public, as a part of a fun. Yeah.
But it's sort of interesting because, like, even if you had the mindset to say, if you had the mindset of saying, okay, that every person that I encountered today, I would encounter them with the mindset that this might be the last time that I ever see them again. Wouldn't you take a very different approach than, walking through life, half asleep, so.
Yeah. That's so very interesting. Yeah.
And the reality is we don't know whether we're going to wake up tomorrow, There's a million things that could happen,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yes. Yeah.
Fascinating. And yeah, but then I sort of take it to the next level and say, for this planet to be, awakened and to sort of transcend the physical dimensions and that, what sort of numbers of people are we going to need for that to occur, to get that critical mass, because you look around and sometimes you think, oh, it gets so, like I don't know about you, but I sort of think, oh, I don't feel depressed, but I get despondent at what I'm seeing every day.
Mm,
It
mm,
motivates me to work harder, but I just think, and I look at, and, I like to observe conversations and observe the actions, like of the elite and stuff like that, and just think, what are you thinking? Like, what are you doing? You could turn
yeah.
this around in a heartbeat, but you choose not to. Like, why? Why? Just don't understand. So.
Mm, mm.
Mm.
But you do understand, and you do know why.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I do, but I still don't understand. And because I know that, it just raises like, well, what are you doing? It's just an exclamation. What are you doing? So.
Mm. Yeah, it's, why are you so dumb? That's the,
Yeah, like, yeah, why?
why are
It's
you
sort of
so
it's
ignorant?
it's, it's sort of interesting though, because one of the things that Alatra talk about a lot is, the way they talk about demons, and their description of the demon is that those demons feast, or they eat, emotions like, fear and lust and greed and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
every time there's this sort of response to something which results in either violence or, fear, or, lust or greed or whatever, they sort of present a visual image of these demons which are just feasting on all of this negative emotion. So,
right, right.
and you sort of think about it, like the idea of feeding negativity, like it's kind of true, isn't it? So
It is true, 100% true, and
yeah.
this isn't it, it's factual, okay?
Mm, mm,
Um, it really is. So that's why those under the spell uh, of the evil of the demons and the worst of them have
mm,
to create that environment on the planet
mm.
um,
Otherwise, they
for
don't
that.
survive. Yeah,
Otherwise,
for
it's
their own
not
survival.
survivable. Yes,
Mm, mm,
absolutely.
mm,
So we get some horrific things happening
mm,
around the world. Particularly with children and the abduction of children and the torturing of adults, and
mm,
uh, to this day. And
mm,
it's for that reason. It's for that reason. It's
mm,
for food. Yeah,
mm, mm.
yeah.
But I think the thing is, in response to that, though, it just, in my mind anyway, makes the work that we're trying to do all the more important. To shine a light on a different path. So. Mm,
I agree.
mm,
And we've chosen to possibly use the people who are thinking of who are either in business and want to do something different or want to start a business. Okay,
mm, mm,
um, but that's a tiny, tiny percentage of the world population.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it is. Yeah.
so
Mm, mm.
yeah,
But there's a de facto leadership component in that, though, isn't there? Because if someone's starting a business, there's an element of leadership around wanting to be of service and to include others and to presumably deliver solutions or services to others. So I think that that approach of ours has a lot of merit, I think, because the reach, if we can, develop, lights and fires in that direction, it'll potentially be high impact. Then
mm,
if you look at evangelism or, other approaches which tries to change human perspectives, so.
yeah.
Mm, mm,
Mm.
yep. Mm. Very good. So you're starting to write again, or you?
Yes, yes, I am. Um, and when I read an article or I read a portion of the book, then I think I must get that down on paper for us. Even if it's just 500 words, and so yes, I am writing again, and I'm 100% well again, and
oh, good.
so
Good.
yeah.
Mm.
So yeah,
just bear in mind it's full moon, so that has some magnification effects on how you feel. So
yeah, you're quite right. It was yesterday or something, wasn't it?
might have been today. I think I'm not 100% sure.
Was it? Okay. So you say it just magnifies your existing feeling. So if you're feeling down, it makes it worse. If you're feeling good, it makes it.
It makes it better. Yeah. So and that's the wonderful thing about it is that it's our choice. Because all of that stuff happens inside.
Right.
And so if we choose to be positive and purposeful and all inclusive, then at this time, full moon and new moon, it just magnifies it. Yeah. And there's certain practices that we can do to try and tap into that as well. So the flip side of that coin is if you're either not feeling well or you're not feeling very positive or you're angry or whatever, it'll just magnify that as well. So when it's if you're in your position where you need to make some decisions, this is not a good time to make decisions. So
right.
because things are sort of out of skew a bit. But,
okay, that's interesting. Yeah. So my gardening at this time would be very good.
Absolutely, and I think you'd be tapping into a lot of secondary energy through having your hands in the soil and being in close proximity to the plants and all of that sort of thing. I think there would be a lot of healing going on there if you've been unwell, and a lot of positive benefits which will come out of that. So
yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So does the opposite happen on new moon?
No, it's the same thing in the sense that the energies are still magnified, but it just seems to happen at the so-called extremities. So full and new and I guess that's sort of like the change of the cycle, I guess. That's when the energies are magnified the most.
Okay.
Like there's lots of sort of narrative around it. Like for example, when the Buddha became enlightened, sitting under the tree, that was a full moon when that happened. At the precise moment of the full moon, that's when that happened. So you think about the implication of the elevation and magnification of the energies of someone who's at that level of awareness. It must be a tremendous thing, so
yeah so interesting. I think it's a good time to end.
Right.